What Drives You is brought to you by Ziglar, your premier source for equipping life and leadership coaches. Visit Ziglar.com and let them inspire your true coaching performance.
Yeah.
Welcome, driven community, and thanks for joining the conversation. We all want to live a driven, inspired, and peaceful life. And together we're learning to drive further and enjoy the ride. This is What Drives You, and I'm your host, Kevin Miller. In this episode, we continue our series on Happierness, is what I called it, which we kicked off with Atlantic columnist and Harvard professor Arthur Brooks. Arthur's new book that he wrote with Oprah is called Build the Life You Want, The Art and Science of Getting Happier. This issue of happiness is significant to me for two reasons. One, happiness is obviously such a hot topic because we as a culture must not be finding ourselves that happy. And two, I feel we're mostly dealing with the symptoms regarding happiness and not the root issues. So to dig further into what I feel are some of the root issues, I have with me Jared Angaza. Jared is a strategist, activist, and storyteller behind many influential brands and campaigns. You probably know him if you've been listening to this much because he's also my brother and my business partner, and someone who I ponder these topics of drive and motive and meaning with quite a lot. Welcome, brother.
Thank you for having me, brother.
And we are in our father's studio, Dan Miller, who, if you listen to some of the past episodes, we've been talking about death as our father is walking through his last days, and we're doing that with him together. So that gives a lot of gravity to any of these issues at this point, and it will be a part of the thread of today's discussion as well. So I've got some things I want to talk to my brother about on this aspect of happiness. Though I know you listened to Arthur Brooks. You listened to the first show we did with him last year. You know Arthur, you know Oprah, you know the deal here, but you listened to it. So I'll let you kick off with some thoughts if you want, because I got one avenue I want to dive down, but
I got a few notes.
All right.
Well, I mean, the first thing I think is just the discussion around happiness. And I think a lot of times everybody's got kind of the subconscious notion in their mind of, I want to be happy. I don't know how many people understand what makes them actually happy.
Yeah. Thanks.
Is that your thing?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I stole it. I think that's a big part of it, is that a lot of times we don't even sit to do that contemplation. Like, what actually makes me happy? What are the things that are important? And, in light of this particular episode where you did talk about Dad's transition journey that we're in the midst of now with Arthur, and how he started off the book, with a discussion around that as well.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. And so we, in light of that, we collectively are in a moment right now when we're looking at it and saying, looking at life and saying, what are the things that rise to the top at a moment like this? Those are probably the things that matter the most to us. Like, what are the things that, that TED Talk that we watched, what was her name? Jane Whitlock. She did a TEDx talk. It's on TED. And it was about what I learned about life from death. She said in that span of time when her partner was dying, she felt like she had a big sifter in the front yard. And she took all of their life and put it in that big sifter and sifted it out. And only the things, what she say, only the matters of the heart remained, the things that really mattered to them. And I think, all right, now there's a foundation of stuff that I could look at to start to understand what it is that truly makes me happy. It's like, what are the things that, in a moment like this, what do I deem most worthy of my attention? And why? And I think that when we get down further into the root of that, we say, well, because it makes us happy, because it's life-giving, because it's good for us in some way, emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever. So just as a, foundation point for the conversation, I think there's I feel like I have somewhat of an advantage right now in looking at what makes me happy, because I'm in this space in my mind of thinking these things don't fit in this discussion. Dad's in his transition journey.
Yeah.
We're here as a family. We're stiff arming a lot of things around us that just don't matter that much right now, because it's family that matters so much. And I think, oh, well, I know family makes me happy also. So it's, I think the things that matter, I hadn't thought about this way, but the things that matter to us most, I think, are also the things that sort of intrinsically make us the happiest, or at least have an avenue to that.
I do. Yes, I'm with you. And I want to meet you right there. I do want to, I feel like I do this pretty much every time the term happiness comes up. I bring this up, but I'm going to again, because I think it's important how we define happiness too. And that is the word, that is the catchphrase. That's the term that we like, a good feeling that's happy. We put that around it. Now, happy, I mean, you think about a kid, you give them a lollipop, you give them a game, they're happy in the moment. It's the little pleasures that may make us happy. What we all really want. And Arthur talked to this. He talked to it in the aspect of, happiness is the journey. It's not necessarily some destination.
I had written that in my notes as well. Yeah. He said it's not a destination. It's a direction.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a direction.
Say a trajectory.
I couldn't come with it. It's a direction, not just a destination, which back to us it's even part of the intro of Drive. Drive is not the destination. We want to just enjoy the day. We want to enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride. Yeah.
And so if we look at that right now, okay, I was thinking about us. So here we are in Florida right now at our parents' house, and Dad is 30 feet on the other side of the wall over there in a hospice bed, dying, a mortal death, at least. And so that's happening. So does that leave room for a lot of happiness? I mean, we're playing games, we have laughter and stuff, but it doesn't feel like this is just not this isn't a pleasurable time in if I put it in pleasures.
Not in the general sense. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
But it's fulfilling, massively fulfilling.
Yeah.
And if we put that in and say, let's call, even though, I mean, we titled this Happierness, we're talking about Arthur's book, Arthur and Oprah's book, has a tagline of happiness, but even he talks about, we're talking about an overall positive feeling and effect that we have on our lives. We could say hope, joy. I feel like that is what we're talking about. It doesn't mean that every moment is happy, but at the end of the day, we want to feel like, man, it's, life is good. Mm-hmm. Like go back to the t-shirt company, life is good. There's, we could say the lots to be grateful for type thing. As well. It's not all just happiness, because I'm concerned that we get caught up in the little happiness. And if we just want happiness, it's okay. Let me have a piece of candy. Let me, scroll a funny social media meme or something that makes me giggle. Let me have a drink of this, a taste of that, a listen to this. And it's just, oh my gosh, it's impossible.
I think in that, I agree. And in you pointing that out, I'd start to draw a line between happiness and entertained. Like, I just want to be entertained. People say that, like, just entertain me. I'm being entertained by, whatever, doom scrolling on some social media thing or whatever. It's entertaining. It's not necessarily making me happy.
I think you nailed it. I would say, I hadn't thought about it that way, that we have replaced, well, not replaced. We have, what's the word? We have happiness now is entertainment. That is our primary effort. There's a better word.
I think people go into it thinking, oh, this is going to make me happy for a minute. I don't think that's true at all. Necessarily.
Well, I mean, maybe it does though. You go into the movie theater, you forget about all your woes and your troubles. You've escaped. Yeah. Right. You've escaped and now you're happy and you want to stay escaped. Cause I look at that as entertainment is not to diss it. You and I dig entertainment as much as anybody, but it is somewhat of an escape. And I want to look at it and go, it is. Do I need to, escape because life sucks? Isn't that the Seth Godin quote? Instead of, it was about vacation. I read it recently, or maybe
it's our sister that talks about it all the time.
Yeah. Yes.
Ashley Logston. That not having or to have a life that you don't need to escape on vacation from.
Right.
But like
Again, not to diss vacations. Yeah. Hey, it's great, but you don't need it because life doesn't suck. Let's just say that. And what we're dealing with, I feel like, is a culture where we have, I mean, we know that from the stats, chronic illness stats, the diseases of despair, that we have more depression, anxiety, apathy, hopelessness, joylessness. We're at an all-time high statistically, apparently. Mm-hmm. It's tragic. Talk about a pandemic, man. That's way worse than COVID. We have more people on antidepressants. We have more people in therapy. We have more suicides.
It's at a high, yeah.
At a high. And oh my gosh. So to come to this and okay, I want to toss it back to you because you came in with what are the things that make us happy? And I said that, yeah, that's where I was. Though in reality, I was looking at what are the things that steal our happiness, that keep us from being happy. Which, and I'll throw it out before I toss it back to you, I'm concerned are our mental set points, our beliefs, he talked about the PANIS test, positive and negative aptitude, something like that.
Yeah, I was going to take it actually. Yeah.
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 I did. And mine came out as a mad scientist that everything's kind of elevated. I wouldn't be surprised if yours did too, but it's looking at your set point. And I thought, how good to look at that. We're talking about happiness to like, okay, let's just get on the car, get the cards on the table. Okay. Barbara, Frank, John, throw it out there. What's your set point? Positive, negative. And I go, yeah, I'm usually pretty negative about stuff. I'm sarcastic. I'm critical. It's just kind of how, not to diss you. It's not judgment because there's a place for that. We need critical thinking. I'll play with that.
Sure.
But if you know that that's your set point to say, gosh, you're sitting here looking at happiness. Let's look at what keeps you from being happy. Can we get those cards on the table in conjunction with what you said? And then what does bring us the most happiness and fulfillment? Because even if we took you and I, we don't have to do it right now, but I mean, there's different things. It'll come to mind in a minute because there's some things recently like you're going, I want to do. Oh, we were eating food. Every day I'm talking about food. What do we have for dinner?
Right.
Food makes me happy. That's a pleasurable little bit. You could care less.
I could care less. Yeah.
Okay. But great to know.
Yeah. No, I know. It's good to just know there's no judgment. There's no right or wrong about it. It's just, we have different
Well, the food thing, it's a little right or wrong, but I get your point.
We have different feelings about it and different ways that we're affected by it and so on. I think one of the things that's popping up as you're talking there is about happiness is, does anything, or let me reframe that. I feel like continual escape impedes my happiness. It just keeps me from getting to where I could get to be happy because I'm constantly escaping. I'm entertaining to satiate so that I'm not having to figure out what actually makes me happy. I think a lot of people are so entertained, they have no idea what actually makes them happy. They're well entertained instead.
And I would guess that their happiness is diluted now. It's also harder and harder to even, it's like a drug.
It's harder to get, it's harder to feel happy from all the things you're doing, kind of sort of believing that that's a path to happiness. And that continual escape. Well, this would probably be the time to bring it, into where Arthur talked, right off the bat about it. It's a choice, happiness is a choice. How many thousands of times have we heard that? We know that, but do we act like that?
Isn't that the statement? You probably know it. It's
happiness is the way.
Well, yeah, but who, Buddha or who or whatever, but it's also like you want to be happy, Who's somebody, I don't know, I can't remember.
Well, yeah, there's probably lots of folks, but the Buddhist philosophy is happiness is the way. It's meaning that you have to become happiness to be happy.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to become happy to be happy kind of thing. It's like you make the choice and then your surroundings start to adapt to that and to your core happiness.
Yeah.
But it's a decision to say, I'm going to show up happy today. And then I'm going to act accordingly. I talk to my kids about this constantly. And, and dad talks, carry your sunshine inside you. It's another kind of way of addressing that. But I think we have to make that decision to say, I'm going to choose happiness today. But none of that works very well for most folks because of what we talked about a minute ago. And that I don't think people have really defined happiness in their mind very well. You don't actually know what is happiness. What does it mean to me? it's a contemplative journey to get there. A lot of times people don't get there until something happens.
It's the fan.
Something hits the fan. And I don't want to go too far into this. Sorry, I'm obviously focused on the death thing lately because of where we're at with our family. But I was talking to mom and dad last night about, if you look at, and for those of you that are on video watching us, we got my hands up here. If you look at kind of a veil of death here,
yeah,
I feel like, from my perspective, there is another awakening that happens on the other side of that veil, in the next realm. And whenever we get close to that veil, close to death, it seems that people talk about an awakening. Just like the big one that happens on the other side. I feel like even if we get close to it, we get a little awakening on this side. We talk about it all the time. Somebody has cancer, somebody has a car wreck, somebody has a divorce or whatever, and they get close to this terrible thing, and then they awaken a bit.
If they're going to.
Yeah.
So I was good because it makes me think of post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic growth disorder, to play with that, which are you going to go? And so it seems like, the death, what we're experiencing is either going to help us with an awakening or it's going to create more death.
It could further traumatize.
Sure. I mean, we got the stats on that. When a child dies, how often do the parents divorce? Or when a spouse dies, how soon does the other spouse, whatever those are.
At that point, it also becomes a conscious choice, just like happiness. How are you going to face this? How are you going to allow it to affect you? Is it going to cause you to shut down? Is it going to cause you to wake up? Again, we're kind of getting into the situation where you've got some sort of core life principles that are going to dictate how you experience anything, obviously, from happiness to sorrow.
Well, which is a story we're in right now, core life principles that our parents, I'm going to give them both credit, came up with, which again, on that, I think I talked about this in one of the recent shows. If you want to see the story we're in, some of it, you can go to Muriel, MURIEL.life/Dan-Miller.
Yes.
And there's hundreds of people on there and journal entries about his updates and testimonies.
There was like 500 tributes to Dad yesterday. I looked on there.
Yeah. And that goes, and you can also link to the Caring Bridge site, which is kind of the daily updates, which again is just, so we're living amongst a story, people testifying to the power, the influence Dad had in their lives. I mean, you and I are testifying to it here, and we're walking amongst that. But
we're literally sitting in his office doing the same thing he does.
We're sitting in his office doing that with him on the other side of the room, which, and I want you guys to hear, even as we're sitting here laughing and stuff. I mean, last night, I didn't tell you this, but last night at some point, we were just checking on him. He's in his bed and he's just there, mouth open, passed out. And I thought for whatever reason, it's just, with all the fulfillment, with all the goodness stuff, this sucks. This is just, it's terrible. He's sitting there waiting to die. I mean, this is not it's not a happy, pleasurable feeling. There's not a ton of those, but there is a deep sense of value and meaning and purpose and fulfillment. At the end of the day, to what you said, it feels like when that comes, gosh, it's interesting. How much entertainment have we participated in the past 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to some of the boys today and they asked me about some show or something. And I said, man, I haven't been able to bring myself to entertainment at all in the last couple months of being here. I haven't watched a show. I haven't watched a thing. I couldn't do it because I was in this space. Our entertainment has just been human interaction back and forth, just all of us. And together.
Here's Dad on his deathbed, literally with because I keep wanting to do that. Do you want something to eat? Do you want music? Yesterday, remember we asked him, do you want to watch something? He's just like, no. There's no purpose in it. Again, please don't hear us dissing entertainment. I adore entertainment.
No, it's not about that.
We do, but I would say it's a budget. I also adore ice cream. I just don't have it constantly because of all those reasons. And to this, I mean, again, we're talking about happiness, and you said something a second ago, and now there's so many different ways to go, but I thought, we still look at it as what out there will make me happy, which there are things that Well, so play with that though, because it's not just a either or, black or white, right or wrong, whatever. What things make me happy? I mean, today I went for a walk, and it was kind of drizzling, and I have joy in that. It gives me pleasure.
That's actually a great point, right there. I was just thinking about the discussion between happiness and joy. It's like, can I do something that brings me some joy? Am I a happy person? It's kind of two different things.
Did I feel happy on my run? Not necessarily. Did I have joy in it? Was there
a moment of joy?
Yeah.
Like with Dad now, it's like we're finding all these beautiful moments of light and even joy and things that are happening.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a generally happy moment.
No.
So that can delineate a little bit.
Okay, we can play with that, because I was sitting here, I had a salad a second ago. Did it make me happy? No, it was good. It's food. Food always makes me. We talked about that. It gives me joy. I mean, I appreciate that. Now, then I did have a thin slice of that cake that Mom bought. Yeah. And I stood there and had probably 4 bites. And that was some happiness. It was dopamine hits. Yeah. Dopamine. It's like a drug. That was great. And then I stopped it. And now, we're here doing this. But to look at that, the entertainment, the dopamine hit, hopefully everybody's familiar with that. That's what I think of. And I think people think of with happiness. Ooh, I need a bite of this, a taste of this, a listen to this, a view of this, happy. And it's killing us. It feels like that's what it's doing. We now have access, unlimited access, which is probably important. When we were kids, we didn't. An afternoon like this, you got soap operas to watch,
which we didn't,
on 3 channels or something or whatever. And we didn't. So you're like, I'd just go find something fulfilled. There wasn't
we were on our bikes.
Quick dopamine hit. It was looking for something interesting. And here we are. I just appreciate you bringing up entertainment and what we all want. Ultimately, I'm going to use the word, if you got a better word, we keep playing with like joy and stuff. Ultimately, what do I want? I want fulfillment.
Yeah. I think
I feel at peace. And
we're toying around with this too. That I think there may be to some degree, a timeline on some of these topics, in that I might feel momentary joy. When I think of happiness, I really don't think about it being momentary. I think about it, and I know that's not necessarily common, but I think that is, if I say, are you a happy person? I'm not necessarily speaking to the exact moment that I'm asking you. I'm saying, like, in general, are you happy? Do you feel happy?
Well, you're taking it away from a feeling to a state of
being,
or state of mind, whatever you want to call it. Well, which Arthur talked about in regards to emotions. He said something like emotions are like little flags.
Yeah, I had notes on that too. I mean, it's something I talk to my kids a lot about. It's like, hey, an emotion, anger or frustration or fear or whatever, it's a alert system that comes up. You should listen to that. Now, don't be owned by it. They're good messengers, not masters. Those emotions. It's coming to give you a message. Hey, pay attention to this, or do something different here, or whatever. Listen to your emotions, let them move through you rather than own you. But I think that's important in this discussion.
It's huge. To me, it's such a massive paradigm shift, mind game for us all to quit saying I am and then name the emotion. I am happy.
When my kids do that, I say, hey, careful. Yeah. Say, I'm feeling anger right now. You're not anger.
Exactly. Well, but do that. I am happy. Yeah. Well, not really. I mean, you know me. Am I always happy? Do I always exist in a feeling of happiness? No, it comes and goes.
Sure.
How do we take away? Well, we wouldn't say, to use my word, fulfillment. We wouldn't say that's not an emotion. That's not in Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart, and her 87 emotions is not fulfillment or peace. I don't think joy is even.
I haven't read it yet.
Okay. Well, but you get the point. It's emotions. I mean, if we play with that, say I am, and we all want to say I am happy all the time. If we take that as a feeling and say, no, it's impossible, but you can, I don't want ownership. Is you said that interesting. I want to own fulfillment. I want to say that no matter what, no matter if my dad's dying, if there's a relational struggle over here, a financial struggle, or a vocational, or a health, or a whatever, I can have those, we can have those, and still say, I have joy, or I have peace, or I have fulfillment. Yeah. and own those.
Yeah. And I mean, just to be scientific about it, and I know you do this a lot with performance stuff and things like that, you look for your baseline. Like, what's your baseline? Am I baseline happy? Am I baseline fulfilled? Am I baseline tortured or fearful?
Pissed off,
angry,
depressed,
or whatever. Yeah.
Bitter.
And then that leaves room in having a baseline for lots of other emotions to be happening along the way in a 24-hour period or whatever. It's like I may have all kinds of emotions, but baseline, I'm a happy guy, or baseline, I'm an angry guy, or whatever. So
I feel like that could be the mic drop to me for this whole thing. It just is on my mind. It's where I was. What's your set point?
Point, baseline.
Yeah. What baseline is great for us all. I mean, right now, guys, you could stop, pause the podcast, whatever, and consider. I mean, look at yourself. Look yourself in the mirror. What is your baseline? What is your set point on positive, negative? That's that PANAS, PANAS test profile. But what is it? Not what, and then if you want to get realer to some degree, or another aspect of it is, what would other people testify to? What would your spouse say? What would your kids say? What would your coworkers say? Your boss, your employees?
That's a big one. And that's a good barometer. When sometimes the guys will ask me, hey, how you doing? And it's not just how you doing, but like hey man, how are you doing?
Yeah.
The real one. And there was a couple times that it came up and I said, ask my kids. They'll give you the real barometer on where I'm at without my filters and whatever. I think that's a good way to look. So for me, a lot of times I'll look at my family unit, my kids and whatever, and say like, where are they rolling here in the mix? Because they're going to be they're young, they're going to be fairly reasonable reflection of where I'm at, or mama or whatever. Like they're going to reflect that. And I look at the people around me and say, well, I don't know how you experiencing me. Do you experience me as happy, like, or down, or whatever? You'd be a better read than maybe I would, because I have my own thoughts and agendas and whatever. So I do look to people around me, not to get in a negative, to like, well, what do other people think about me? You know me well enough to know I don't really care.
No, but how do they experience?
But how do you experience me? That I care about a lot. Like I want to be. We've talked about this before, I'm sure, but like my personal mission statement is that, or vision or whatever, is that I want to let my light shine so bright it liberates the light in others. So I've already attested to the fact that I do want to be doing that, and I am attuned to that. So if I feel like I'm causing someone to come down in some way rather than to shine brightly, that does concern me. And I want to then look at myself and say, like, what am I doing to contribute to that? If I'm doing that to them, I know I'm doing it to me. Like there's no way I can be happy in that place.
Yeah.
So
yeah, back to what you said. I mean, granted that, they could have, if you're shining your light on me and I'm wanting some darkness, you could piss me off with your light. That's not on you. That's on me.
Discernment in that practice. But yeah.
Yeah. I've literally, I think it's great too, if you think about other people, because we so often cannot see ourselves. There are a lot of times when if you ask me, hey, Kevin, so how are you feeling today? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. That has to do with my own emotional unintelligence sometimes, or amongst tragedy, in essence, like what we're in now. I can feel a little confused. I do sometimes wish I could look back on the day and see a GoPro, a video of me.
Yeah.
And go, oh man, I didn't, or hopefully I'd be going, oh, great. That's awesome. Or I'm afraid I'd be going, oh man, how many times did I, cuss under my breath when I bumped my toe or knocked something off or said or whatever.
Yeah. I think about that too. Like I did that last night. I slipped or something coming in last night because it's slippery on the tile there. And I was like, said a few things and I was like, what's that about? Exactly. How was I feeling that?
Yeah.
That moment that seemed out of line.
Yeah.
So I checked myself, but that's a good way to tune in.
I love the idea of, you're looking at, Arthur and Oprah's book, Build the Life You Want, talking about happiness, and to come first off and go, man, where like you said, baseline, set point, where am I? To get honest with ourselves, where are we? Because that's going to undermine any symptomatic effort or any pursuit that we do. Okay. First there. The second one that we keep coming to, big hit, is, are we looking for it externally? Are we trying to find happiness and do something that we hope will trigger the emotion of happiness, which again, I love the dopamine hit. I love the funny thing that happens, the joyful thing. You win the lottery, whatever it would be that does it for you. But if you take those out, now we can go to the full end of the spectrum to Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning, where he had absolutely nothing, no pleasures for years, nothing but hardship and torture and hunger and cold. And he was able to go in there and find, I don't know that he would say at all, I don't know that he would even align with that word happy, but he would say, I found what? Peace?
Peace, I think, is probably him just
meaning
in line.
And search for meaning.
Obviously found meaning.
He found
I think part of that meaning brought him peace. That's how he got the peace that he had in that space. And again, the happiness, I don't know if that would be where he was then.
I could almost see him like, here's a lollipop. Oh, great. I'm going to take your lollipop away. Okay. It's just.
Oh, that's a bit. I mean, now we're getting into some of the Eastern philosophy that, I study all the time. And there's an old story about a lama, like the Dalai Lama. Mm-hmm. And they bring, it's a bit of a sordid story, but some lady gets pregnant.
I was going to tell it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How do you even know that?
DeMello.
Really?
Anthony DeMello.
All right. Well,
go.
The guy gets, that's wild that we both came into that same story.
Well, you heard me depicting it in my, you take it away. Okay. Cause the dude, it's hardcore.
And what does he say? I think it's, and so it is, or something like that, or okay. So, or something like that. Something like that. But to tune everyone else into
sorry, we're having our own conversation. So he's in the town.
And well, no, he's not. It's a woman, and a woman gets pregnant, and by some guy on a boat, at the harbor here, one of those sailor, and doesn't want to pin it on him. So she says it was the old monk up on the hill or whatever. Seems a bit far fetched, but whatever. Everybody said okay. They went up to the top of the hill. They banged on the door and said, "You made this lady pregnant. Here's the baby. You have to raise the baby." And he says, "Okay. No problem," or something to that effect. Yeah. Immediately, just, okay. No fight, no nothing. Takes the kid. 9 years later, I think it's the woman is dying or something like that. And she says, I've got, I need to confess. It was not the sailor. It was not the monk. It was actually the sailor. And so they feel bad. And the townspeople, they go back to the monk and say, "Oh, we're so sorry. This is the other guy's baby. So we're going to take the kid now, the 9-year-old child, from you to this other dude." And he says, "Okay." And it's just like that ability to just be in that moment and accept what is and not relinquish your baseline of happiness and joy and fulfillment because of something that happens circumstantially. Now, that's a pretty hardcore story.
It does. It sounds like, oh, that's just some fantasy fable. I get the point, but that's just not real life. Because if you take away my job, my money, and my mortgage is now in jeopardy, or you can take it to whatever tragedy you want. Granted, I feel like we spend a lot of time with what I do first world problems. Like, seriously, I'm concerned about, X, Y, Z. My second car is broken down. Yeah. Dude, you got 2 cars, whatever it is. We spend so much time wrapped up around honestly insignificant things. But then even when the significant thing happens, and man, I was thinking about it this morning, thinking about this show, and that, here Dad is, if we were wrapped around that he has to live.
Yeah.
Or gosh, I'm making stuff up for the sake of it, guys, because this is not real. Or if I felt like I've got to get something from him,
right,
or get something across to him.
Yeah.
Or we felt dependent upon him. Holy crap. Dad's going to go and we rely on him for, whatever. And not having that obviously gives us the space to just be here. And at this point, what would we most want for him? I would think it would be for him to breathe his last breath. Sounds terrible, but that's what he wants.
He's in there in the game.
Yeah, he's just trying not to be in pain and feels like he can't do anything at this point. And so I'm not sitting around praying for his last breath, but I'm conscious of that's really what he wants. And I would, anyways. It helps. I do like hitting the exaggerated aspects like this because it hopefully can help us grapple with the day to day better, not to minimize.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to hear this and go, gosh, yeah, I shouldn't be. If you say shouldn't, you're already
on the wrong path.
But say, I shouldn't feel bad about X, Y, Z. Because I mean, Jared and Kevin are sitting here talking about their dad dying. Well, somebody else is talking about something 10 times worse than that.
Right.
My gosh. I mean, our dad's dying. He's had a good life. I mean, somebody right now today is going to.
There are multiple outrageous wars going on right now.
I was going to say, and there's people that are, two little kids who are going to lose both their parents today.
Yeah.
There's tragedy. So the point is, what is to Jared's thing? What is, and I want to use the words, you call it happiness, but undergirding that, fulfilling. What is a meaning to us? What is a value to us for us to get real with that? And even to the joys, let's not leave those out. What are the joys? What does give you joy? Man, I love going to bed every night and reading a fiction book. I like coffee. I like, we're going to go to dinner with mom tonight, and that will be fun to me. That'll be play. I'll probably get a nice glass of wine, and that's just, that'll be happy stuff.
Yeah. There's another, I think it's another Buddhist thought, but the idea that, what is it? It's something along the lines of, those that have no preferences have the easiest path to joy or to happiness. And it's the preferences. It's like, well, I prefer to have my mud water in the morning. You prefer to have your coffee in the morning. I prefer to have, warm weather. Actually, and you prefer cold weather.
This is some muggy.
I like muggy and hot. So I have my preferences, but something that in studying all these other philosophies for so long, I'm constantly checking in with myself to say, can I carry my happiness with me, to Tahoe with the family when there's 4 feet of snow and I'm a little bit miserable, or to whatever? Can I carry my happiness with me there? Or can I carry my happiness with me and my core beliefs that everything belongs and that we live in a benevolent universe? Can I carry that into my dad's death? I have, but that it's important to ask, to ask myself to contemplate that. Like, can I take that, in this particular situation with dad at 76, having lived an amazing life, and very fulfilling and joy filled for him and mom. And he's 76. My kids are my kids, 11 and 2 8-year-olds. And I look at that and think, am I good enough to take what I brought into dad's death into one of my children's death? I don't know if I'm there. That seems impossible to me. I do know many other people that I study from and whatever that could and have. And I think, ultimately, we talk about, it's super far-fetched, to take it all the way to the example of the llama that we were just talking about that said, okay, and he gave the kid away at 9, whatever. I have an adopted kid that, and you do actually. So we like to think of just letting them go after 9 years. How old is Jade Aria? 11. Yeah. So, in mine with Francois, it's like if somebody had come over to say, we're taking your kid after 9 years, I would have been like, over my dead body or yours. And I now am looking at that and thinking, that's like, what could I be that good? And by that good, could I be that disciplined in my own beliefs? Could I be that resilient and unyielding in my faith and in my joy or in my happiness and so on?
Okay. That's hard.
It is very hard, but in that contemplation,
right,
it tunes me into where I'm at now. It tunes me into what I might aspire to be more of. It doesn't mean I have to hold myself to some standard I'm maybe not even capable of getting to, but it's a contemplation along the way.
I don't know how to go there. And I mentioned this to Arthur. You should have heard it when you listen.
I did.
We got into attachment.
I know. That was actually first on my list. I'm surprised we didn't get that. But the attachment part of it is where I think a lot of our happiness gets pushed out the window because we're attached to something for in order to feel happiness. If this happens,
in order
I'll be
to,
happy.
well, there's the big word, in order to. So if I look at that,
doesn't mean you're bringing it with you. That means you're waiting to see if it happens when you get there. Your happiness.
In looking at the pleasures, let's call them, if we pleasures the happiness,
pleasures, enjoyment, entertainment, all that stuff's in the same
Can
box,
I still have joy in my day without them? I desperately, and I know you too, want to say yes. And I kind of believe that I'm at a place now where you can take away those. Would I prefer them? Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
And it bothers me sometimes. Can I sit there with my, journal in the morning, and can I enjoy it without a hot beverage? Yes. Would I prefer
possible.
a hot beverage?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It adds spice and richness, and I love it. And I love loving those things. And so again, I want people to hear, we're not discounting those joys, man. If you if you can't wait to watch the Super Bowl, just have fun with it. Knock yourself out, or go to a concert.
But if the Super Bowl gets canceled, obviously it doesn't happen. But if it got canceled, it's like, can you still carry your joy with you that day and go, okay, and so it is, Yeah,
if you've watched the series that ended on Netflix or something like that, and you were depressed for a week, or you still are, we got some issues. And again, I've dealt with it too. We all have, but that is what we're looking at. It's not to discount. Back to attachment, which we could do an entire podcast for years just on attachment, but you're going to hear it keep coming up because Jared and I are pressing into this constantly. But attachments, that's my source is Anthony DeMello. I'm reading his book, a little book right now called The Way to Love. It's his last notes. It's not what they call it. His last meditations of Anthony. But how many people talk about attachment in so many different forms? We could name a list of people.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, and I don't want people, when you hear that, we're not talking about that necessarily the therapeutic, the relational therapy of attachment, like a child to a parent necessarily. There's some overlapping aspects, but in here we're talking about attachment to things. So like this, am I so attached to a hot beverage that I cannot enjoy my morning?
Yeah.
And then think about your words that you speak. Oh my gosh, don't even talk to me. We joke about it. Don't talk to me until I've had my second cup of coffee. Yeah. It's funny. We get it. It's kind of tragic though. I mean,
and I get that. I know it's the thing that people say. You know me well enough. I'm very deliberate with my words. I would never say that.
I am deliberate than I used to be.
Right. More deliberate.
Yeah. But Matt, I think the words that we speak our happiness or a possibility to into life. And if you have convinced yourself you can't be happy until you've had your second cup of coffee,
then it'd probably be true.
Or unless the weather. Where was I? I was at the club where my parents, the health club today, and heard a couple ladies just going on about, the weather is terrible. It is despicable.
Yeah, we're in Florida, and that's what people do when it gets rainy and cold.
Because it's overcast and raining. And I was thinking right away of a couple of my kids who would be ecstatic. Mm-hmm. Ecstatic. They love that. They are frustrated that we live in such a sunny place. They love the overcast and, kind of the idea of a book in a corner and a coffee and the overcast stuff. And these ladies are claiming what it is, as opposed to saying, you know what? Florida has great weather. I don't prefer today. Prefer the rain and stuff, it messes my hair up and I don't prefer it. Totally cool. I hope their happiness is not dependent upon the weather, and a lot of people's are. We're overlapping messages here, but we speak this stuff into life. And when we look at it, Tom Rath wrote Success 2.0. Mm-hmm. It was a best-selling book. He wrote a later book called Fully Charged, and he said it was based on his curiosity initially of how people depict what a good day is. Hey, how was your day today? And they think on it. That's pretty good. Let's see. Coffee maker worked. It was, good. It was a new coffee. It was really good. And man, there wasn't much traffic on the way to work. And I got in and my boss said, he was really stoked with something I did. And I got this sweet note from my spouse, and man, it's a good day. Like son of a gun, happenstance. And you can imagine this book he's saying, just like Arthur is ultimately. And this book was a decade or more ago. And like Arthur's saying, he said, there are ingredients that make this stuff up. You can cultivate those ingredients every day, no matter what. And it's not made up of these external things necessarily. It's deeper stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's not just platitude, gratitude, Pollyanna kind of stuff of trying to figure out what was good. Okay, the traffic was terrible at work today, but at least I wasn't in a wreck. Okay, I was in a wreck, but at least I didn't die. I mean, we can go to these variations. They're all external things that we can't control for the most part.
Yeah.
What can we control? It's weighty because we're so addicted to the pleasures.
As you're speaking, I'm just sitting here thinking that I feel like, I'm hesitant to say it, but I feel like I could confidently say happiness, at least in my perspective, feels free of attachment. Because anytime I'm attached to something, I'm threatening my core happiness.
Yeah.
If I'm not attached to it and I can be free of that attachment, I can be free to carry my happiness with me no matter what. Uh-huh. It's not dependent on it, whether or not I got my coffee or the thing went right, or I got the job or didn't get the job, or whatever it is. It's like it's not dependent on anything. It's just, I'm choosing a baseline of happiness that is resilient against anything that may stand against it.
I feel like the words you said, though, it's our preferences. So would you prefer your hot beverage? Would you prefer the weather? Like, of course. But to what you said, and you've said it in multiple shows, does it own me?
Yeah.
Does it control me? Can I look at it, put it out on the table? So, of course. Okay, let's, because you said something a minute ago on preferences. And I thought, I used to joke about it. The secret to success, just lower your expectations.
Yeah, I mean, people say that.
That's depressing as all get out.
Terrible idea.
I mean, if I don't have expectations
it's
and
a
hopes,
pessimistic concept. Yeah.
Well, but yes, my experience is, though, that people in this kind of a discussion can get confused with that and think that enlightenment is being a monk up on top of a mountain with your legs crossed, and all you need is a clover leaf a day, and you just kind of exist. Are you happy? Oh, we've gotten away with that. We don't need happiness. We don't need any pleasures. We're just there. I don't want to do that personally.
Nor is that what a monk actually does, but it is a common misperception.
A common misperception, and lowering your expectations to where I don't need pleasures. I don't do pleasures. And I read some of the folks that you and I read, and I think I have a little more pleasure seeking than some of these folks, but can I put it out on the table to where it doesn't own me? And yeah, man, I get a lot of joy out of food. I really enjoy food. I enjoy making it. I enjoy enjoying it. Can I be okay? Did I have any joy when I fasted for 5 days? The one time I actually did that, it was fine. I mean, life is still life, and it was good. I missed it.
I feel like the opposite. I'd prefer to fast. If I have to eat, I will.
Right. Well, again, can we get it out on there and say, those things give me joy? I mean, to me, it's like spice of life. Man, I want those spices. I want to go to the beach and see the sunrise. I want to run. Yeah. I want taste. I want to play games and read a good book and a good story and do this. I mean, this right now is fun. For me, this is pretty much, I mean, this fits in the happy bucket for me about talking about something that matters. And somebody else, it does not. The thought of doing this would be terrible. It'd be like my kids. We were talking about our niece, Juliet, about performing. And I mentioned that I've got kids who perform. They actually volunteer to take their time and go up on stage and perform. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'd just rather not. I would rather, there's so many things. I'd rather clean toilets. Legit. I would rather, clean some toilets. And personal preference. So let's put that out on the table. And yet, can we, I think to your standpoint, can we take all those preferences and say, yeah, but without them, where am I? If I can't have my phone, I can't have my social media, if I can't have whatever that thing that you're constantly grasping for the dopamine hit.
Yeah, some of the
attachment.
Some of this is reminding me of that book that you turned me on to, The Comfort Crisis.
Yeah.
Eric?
No.
Anyway, you think on that?
Yeah.
The comfort crisis was just addressing the fact that we've made life so comfortable that we sort of are in many ways failing to pull out of us what could come out of us. We've made life so much about our comfort and safety that we've failed to be able to even have the great joy or the great fulfillment or whatever that we could have, because we're just too busy making everything all comfortable around us.
Easy, convenient. And I think the one, and I'm going to call Brene Brown out where it came to fruition for me, though I know other people talk about it, resilience. We are less resilient.
Resilience is one that comes up so much. Yeah.
And the one that always gets me the analogy is that question that you can ask people. It's very telling. I want to say telling, but not to be judgmental with it. But if you, at the end of this year, you knew you were going to have $1 million in the bank, would you rather win it in the lottery or have it from doing something? Most people that have most, if not all, I mean, I haven't done some nationwide survey, but people who have overcome, they've achieved, they've done something, they all say, oh, gosh, I'd rather have earned it.
Yeah.
People who have not experienced a whole lot. And I would say even some of I think I did this to some of my kids, and some of them are like, screw it, lottery.
Yeah.
I get that. I understand that. They haven't really experienced a whole lot. But to your thing, that came up with Arthur, if not in this show, with the last one, to some degree. Is your level of, quote, happiness, joyful moment, somewhat equivalent to the level of hardship you've encountered?
That's one that's come up quite a few times. And man, I can't remember who it was. It may have even been Richard Rohr or something, but saying that our capacity for joy is often equal to our capacity for sorrow. Because if we can feel deep sorrow, we can probably feel a greater, deeper joy on the other end of that pendulum. It's like your pendulum swing is able to get wider and wider, more sorrow, more joy, more
capacity. That's a better way of saying it. Capacity, as opposed to saying
it's the same muscle that grows your capacity for pain and for joy. It's like that same space that we're growing.
Right.
I think a lot of people that have never had great pain have also not had the great joy that others that have had great pain have had. Even like someone think about like Viktor Frankl coming out of what he came out of, Auschwitz, and then saying, like, when he has this great joy, my guess is that he has a greater capacity to feel more happiness and joy and fulfillment than most people, because he had
on the worst
his
day,
capacity of the worst.
After his freedom, on the worst day, it was 1,000 times better than where he came from. The best day in the concentration camp.
Yeah.
And I guess, granted, not all of us have that, and people are hearing this. I mean, I feel like by far and large, I've had a pretty privileged life. I have not had dramatic tragedies. I mean, this is not going to go down. My dad died at 76. I'm not going to list that in tragic. I mean, it's tragic that, he expected a lot more.
Sorrowful for us to lose him, and to not have him moving forward.
And then we're 6 weeks out, and we thought that he was going to live for 20 more years. And that's disappointing. And, and yet, anyways, but the point being, so have I had, tragedy? I don't want to say I shouldn't say it's equal to, but to a capacity. I want to grow my capacity to feel the negative emotions.
And maybe it's just growing our capacity to feel.
Maybe that, maybe true.
And that requires some vulnerability that not everybody's up for. Yeah. But I think it's important. I mean, you've seen me over the years just go face forward, into some of that vulnerable stuff to feel more deeply. One of the things that I come back to so much, I probably ought to write a book about it at this point, but in moments, and I adjusted this the other day when I was talking to my daughter, Saoirse, that I was saying in tragic moments, but I adjusted it a bit just to say in moments that really pull on your heart. I feel like the opportunity there that I want to steward well is to allow it to move me, to work on me. This thing with Dad, other things that I've been through that have been hard, let's just say. I want to allow that to move me. I think I first wrote that when I was writing about the riots in Ferguson and stuff at the time and all the racial tension. And people were saying, what can I do? What can I do to help or release this tension or reduce it or whatever? I said, well, the first thing that you can do is allow it to actually move you and not to just have it as a moment today. And then tomorrow you're back to the grind again. And it's just fleeting. but allow it to actually change you and move you and work in you. That takes commitment and discipline and vulnerability and a lot of other things like that. But I feel like on the other side of that, we get to feel more deeply and understand how to dance with those feelings and let them feel greatly inside of us and then let them move through us. Again, great messengers, not masters. Could probably say that about a lot of things. But.
Well, I appreciate that because I don't want to pin your level or ability or capacity for happiness and joy as equal to you got to go through horrific tragedy necessarily. So I think it does help.
You can build that muscle in multiple ways.
Okay.
One of them is going through tragic stuff a lot and building that muscle. Other ways is just to deliberately go in and build that muscle and that capacity for joy and happiness.
That makes sense. And I'm thinking about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Which is, I speak about it a lot. It's not been one of the greatest strengths of my life, which is why my therapist actually is who told me to get Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. There's 87 emotions. Kevin, why don't you go learn a few?
It's a great Bible for figuring out your emotions.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to do that, to understand, to feel, to be moved, to understand that so I can experience the highs as well, experience those more so, hold on to them,
the more
anchor them.
You're going to be vulnerable and tune into the low vibe stuff that's hard. I do think that it also can open you up. Not everyone seizes the moment, but it can open you up to more, again, a greater capacity for happiness.
Yeah.
Maybe part of what we're talking about is just the commitment to allowing ourselves to feel more, to allowing it to move us, to allowing ourselves to be moved, whatever it may be.
Which is a great point in regards to auditing yourself, which I feel like this is a call out to, thank you, to audit back to where I talked about your baseline, your, where is your set point on happiness and understanding, where your emotions are. And when you look at happiness, if we talk about the dopamine hits and the need for entertainment and the grasping for the next dopamine hit, what is that a result of? Because I think it's often, I feel something bad. I feel something negative. I feel a negative emotion. I don't feel comfortable. And so it's this, and I'm saying this as somebody who's done it. I have done that. I literally might talk about my therapist. I also said, Kevin, next time that feeling comes on, sit in it. Yeah. They said, don't go run.
Don't escape.
Don't go get another beverage. Don't turn the music on. All the things that I do.
Yeah.
And it's not that I never do those. Sometimes I realize, gosh, I got a negative feeling and okay, experience it. Now I don't want to sit in it all day.
Right. Well, that's probably wise.
Yeah. And so I'm going to use some things there, but don't jump so fast. And so, for me, it's been a emotional intelligence, and it is helping my happierness.
Yeah. I that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I think we're there.
Thanks to, it is. It's such a, man, I love these candid conversations. Thank you to ArthurcBrooks and Oprah Winfrey. Again, their book is Build the Life You Want, The Art and Science of Getting Happier. You can also check out, Arthur has an online workshop, The Art and Science of Happiness. You can find that at scienceofhappier.com. The next episode will be me kind of wrapping up some of these key points. I'm going to be pondering it myself. And I love some of these aspects of our preferences and our baselines and whatnot. I think those are some of the keys to get to the root of happiness, not just focus on the symptoms. So folks, you appreciate the show. Hit us up on Spotify and leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a rating and review. And thanks so much to a lot of you guys who've been leaving new reviews there. That helps people find us and know what to expect. You can find us on YouTube and social media at kevinmiller.co. We got more and more people every day, not only watching us on YouTube, but commenting. And when you comment on YouTube, I can comment back. I can't do that on the other platform. So it's a really cool one to do it there. And if you want to learn how to master your own inner drive, I got a book. It's called What Drives You. Same as the show here. And until next time, stay driven.
Yeah.